Hey everyone, and welcome back to the StudyTube Project. My name is Manny, and for those of you that are new here, I am a fourth year studying computer science and philosophy at the University of Oxford, and today I'm going to be bringing you another episode in a topic in philosophy that I find really interesting. So much for your response on the last video. I found it so cool that you guys, that a lot of you already knew about the trolley problem and were interested just to hear different aspects of it. I love it when people are just as interested in like philosophical things as I am. Enough weirding out. Today I'm going to be talking about something called free will. So thank you so much for choosing to watch this video. I mean, that's if you chose to, or it could have been the case that the universe aligned in that the current state of the universe and your current belief desire system would have matched the fact that the YouTube algorithm led to this video being up on your home screen, so you clicked on it and everything just aligned perfectly. You might not have had a say in watching this video, in which case I say sit down and buckle up. Before we get into this, I'm going to give you a very quick summary of the two opposing camps in this debate against free will and determinism. So libertarians argue that all our choices are absolutely free. It's a very intuitive idea that all of our actions are fully caused by us and our self. What are you doing? Whereas the other camp, the hard determinists, say that no, everything in the world is predetermined. They go so far as to say that if you knew the exact state and location and properties of each and every atom in the universe and the laws that govern them, you'd be able to predict the future. And given that we are part of the universe, we also fall under those laws that govern the world. Between these two camps lies a middle ground known as compatibilists. Now, compatibilists argue that these two ideologies can actually go hand in hand. We can have determinism, but that doesn't necessarily diminish our understanding of free will. And this allows us to keep our everyday understanding and moral responsibility. However, there is an argument against this that says that if determinism is true, meaning that we could not do otherwise than we do, we cannot be held morally responsible for those actions. Now, the principle that underlies this argument, the one that we'll be discussing for the majority of this video, is the principle of alternate possibilities. And it states that we can only be morally responsible for actions that have alternate possibilities. It has an intuitive appeal in terms of if I was a truck driver and I ran over a person and I ran over two people just because of my negligence and the fact that I wasn't concentrating on the road, I did have alternate possibilities, and so I should be morally responsible for that accident. However, if I see two people cross the road and my brakes do not work when I pull them, I could not have done otherwise in that situation, and so there clearly is a moral difference between those two cases. However, compatibilists like Harry Frankfurt argue that we can in fact be morally responsible even when we don't have alternate possibilities. And to show this, he tries to come up with a counterexample in which we have exactly that, no alternate possibilities, but we do have moral responsibility. Now, this is a pretty difficult counterexample to understand, so sit back tight and I'll try and explain this as calmly as I can. Imagine you have three people, A, B, and C. Let's say A is thinking about killing B. I know this is very morbid. A is thinking about killing B. Let's say C also wants to kill B, and is prepared to go to any lengths to do so, but also wants to make sure that no hand of theirs is seen in the murder of B. So what C does is plants a device into A's head. If A chooses to kill B through their own thought process, does absolutely nothing. But if A decides not to kill B, it will intervene to take effective steps to ensure that A does in fact kill B. Now, suppose that this device is never triggered. Now, A kills B through their own decision process. Who is responsible, and are there any alternate possibilities? Harry Frankfurt argues that there are no alternate possibilities here. However, it's obvious that A is morally responsible. Now, this is for two reasons. Because A has actually no idea that C has implanted this chip. So there is no way A could point to C in order to vindicate himself. Additionally, the other argument is that there is no interference of C in this at all, as the device was never actually triggered. So in any other case, C has made no difference, because had C not been there, A would have still killed B. Harry Frankfurt argues that this is a counterexample to the principle of alternate possibilities. Therefore, this argument against compatibilists doesn't really hold. So the incompatibilists here have two options. They can either somehow argue that there are alternate possibilities here, or argue that there is no moral responsibility for A. Let's look at the former. Some argue that there are in fact alternate possibilities here. The very fact that there are different brain neural paths that you could go through, the first being A choosing to kill B through his or her own decision process, or by triggering this device that C has implanted and then doing it through another process. So here there are two different possibilities, and even though these are very small alternatives as opposed to different choices, it's just different neural paths to do the same thing, they argue that this isn't enough of an alternative to render there being alternate possibilities. So this is not a counterexample to our principle. However, some argue that this is not a robust counterexample, as it isn't entirely clear why small flickers are able to ground moral responsibility. Another objection to Frankfurt's case is that the counterexample suffers a dilemma. If we study the relationship between the trigger, the thing that this device is observing to ensure that A is going to kill B or not, if we analyze that relationship is either deterministic, meaning that if we see a specific prior sign, we definitely know A is deciding to kill B, in which case this device does not intervene. If that is a deterministic relationship, then if we're an incompatibilist, we are no longer morally responsible. However, this begs the question because we are assuming the very problem that we set out to solve. If the relationship between that prior sign and what A is going to do is indeterministic, then we could assume that prior sign will be correct, let's say 90% of the time. That means that there is a small percentage, namely 10%, in which there is an alternate possibility. So again, this does not seem like the correct counterexample. So clearly we must use a case that doesn't rely on some sort of prior sign, because this prior sign is either ensuring that there's no moral responsibility or that we actually have alternative possibilities. Another strategy is used by a philosopher called Hunt, and what he does is show a case called a blockage case. So imagine we have two timestamps, T1 and T2, and at T2, someone decides to perform a specific task X using neurological pathway P. So the neurons that they will use to create that path happen at P. Now suppose we replicate that, but at time T1, we block off every single other neurological path other than P. And at time T2, we let the initial case happen. My camera just shut off for some weird reason. Suppose we then block off every other path that you might have taken in making that decision process, and then we let you continue make your decision process as you would have already. Hunt argues that this is a case where you do have moral responsibility because you're literally doing what you would have done without any interference, but you don't have any alternate possibility because we've literally blocked off every other neurological path. Some argue that this case also doesn't hold because this is a canonical example of determinism. However, Hunt replies and says, no, this is not determinism because we're not causing this to happen. The event isn't causally determined, we're just making it inevitable, whatever that means. The analogy here can be something similar to a tube and a marble. Suppose you have a marble with a diameter of 1 centimeter and a tube that has a diameter of 1.000001 centimeters. And we pass that marble through the tube, through a straight tube, without the tube actually touching the marble. If one asks why the marble is moving in a straight line, one could say that the tube isn't causing the marble to move in a straight line, but it's making it inevitable to move in a straight line. However, but Kane argues that insofar as you've made something inevitable, you've caused it. It is determinism, plain and simple. However, this has now become an argument of what we believe causality to be, and that's kind of shifted the goalpost a bit. As you can see, it's not easy to come up with these kind of examples, and compatibilism for years has not been the theory of choice. However, Frankfurt cases have really given us a chance to shift the common sense view of morality. And this shifts some of the burden not only to compatibilists, but also to incompatibilists to explain to us why it is that if determinism is the case, why we don't have moral responsibility for our actions. Because intuitively we do. Although today we're exploring a very niche aspect of moral responsibility, namely Frankfurt cases, I find this topic really interesting, and there is a lot of literature and a lot of videos on YouTube out there about these. I'm going to link a couple of my favourite ones down below in the description box. I know that today's topic was not as accessible as the last one. I do think that this is something that you guys could grasp with a little more thought. If you have any questions about today's video, do let me know in the comment section below, and I'd be love to answer as many as I can. I really hope you enjoyed it. I know that today was a little bit more difficult than my previous video. If you enjoyed my videos, don't forget to check out my own channel. The link is in the description box below. I hope you guys are doing well and keeping safe at home, socially distancing, self-isolating, keeping well, healthy and safe. I'll see you guys next time, and thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys so soon. Don't forget to check out our Instagram and be back tomorrow at 6 PM for another video. Bye guys. Welcome back to the StudyTube channel. It's not a channel, it's a project.